Based on the reaction from my last video on how to do factory defense, I noticed that there was a lot of requests for more videos to explain more about multiplayer. Before I play any game, I like to understand the rules, and I thought for anyone wanting to play multiplayer that they should too understand all the rules that go into it. So the focus on this video is going to be breaking down all the rules and mechanics of the Finnish virtual pilot server. My hope is that after watching this video, you should jump into the server and have a solid understanding of how everything works. You should know that this is the only server that I play on, and I personally think it is actually the best server in IL-2, and I would go as far to say that it's probably actually the best multiplayer server in any air simulator right now. I've had the most fun on this server than I've had on any of the other IL-2 ones or even on DCS. I think it's important also to note that I'm not officially associated with the server at all. I'm not part of the staff, nor do I have any sort of financial or social interest to promote the server. I'm just a fan. With that said, even though I'm not officially associated with the server, I do play on the server a lot, and I believe I understand the mechanics of the server really well, and well enough to explain it. At the time of this recording, I'm currently number 3 on the server in terms of playtime, with around 139 hours since the beginning of January. So it's safe to say that I understand the rules quite well. I'm going to break down this video in several parts. There's a lot to get through, and this video is probably going to be longer than I would like, but I have structured the video in a way where it can be used as a manual. You can use the chapter feature in the description to jump to a section to dig into something if you need a reference point. The best way to describe the server is that it's essentially an online dynamic campaign. You have blue, Germany and Italy, versus red, Russia, the UK, and the US. The campaign starts with the map split by both sides, and the map does not stop until the objective cities have been captured. And these objective cities are generally towards the edges of the map, so basically the side that takes over the whole map wins. The next thing to understand is how the front line moves, because it doesn't move in real time. There are 2 sectors on the map, and each sector has its own objectives. These objectives are the things that you see on the map, like the frontline troops, artillery, the depots, the industrial targets, and the convoys. As the sides bomb and kill these targets, they start to tally up points, and the side with the most points win the sector. And then based on how much more they destroy determines how far the front line moves. Now, the front line moves in only 2 ways. Either it happens at the end of a 6-hour cycle, or there's a thing that happened that's considered a breakthrough. And a breakthrough is when one side has both of their sectors lower than 25% of the health. And when that happens, there's a server reset within 1 minute, and the server comes right back up, and the lines are refreshed, and you can see how far things have moved. So each sector essentially has 2 airfields and a temporary airfield, and each side has 1 air resupply air spawn where you can spawn heavy aircraft that can carry supplies. The temp airfields do not have flak, and vulging and even strafing of the airfields is allowed. The real airfield or non-temp airfields have flak. The forward airfield has fighters and attack aircraft, while the rear airfield has everything including bombers. Each airfield can hold 35 aircraft, and as planes get shot down, supplies dwindle, they have to get replenished. So that's where the air spawn comes in. And in order to resupply an airfield, you have to come out of the air spawn, and you fly from there to the airfield that needs supplies. You land and you despawn, or click finish mission, and you will resupply the airfield. Ju-52s carry 30 planes, while all the other aircraft carry 10 planes. I mentioned earlier the 6-hour restart cycle. It's important to note that the server covers all of the great battles, so all the aircraft are in the server. At the beginning of a campaign, it begins in Tier 0, where it's early war, and it will progress until late war. Every 2 days, the server will go up a research tier, and new aircraft will become available, and older ones will be retired. The breakdown of the aircraft per tier are shown here and are available on the Finnish side. When it reaches its final tier, another 2 days will pass, and then we'll go back to the beginning research cycle. So it's a great server to basically fly all the planes and be competitive in them at any point. On top of that, the maps have seasons. So you're not going to have clear blue skies every single day. Every 2 cycles, the seasons will change. So as you play on the server, you will notice that it will change from spring to summer and then to winter and so on. Each new season starts in the morning And at the end of 2 6-hour cycles, you will start to see that the day starts to turn into night. So you get a wide range of variety of light and seasons. They even have blizzards or heavy storms modeled. They are rare, but they will appear on the server. I have gone pretty far without even mentioning the tanks on the server. They actually have playable tanks, and from what I can tell, they're one of the few IL-2 servers that have them. The objective for the player tanks is to capture this thing called the capture point, or the CP, and it sits between the two frontline troops. It's a small area cap, and once tanks sit in it, they capture the zone, and if it's captured, then they give a bonus to the frontline push. I think it's about 5 kilometers. If one side has only owned the zone for, let's say, 50% of the time, then they get half of the 5 kilometers, so 2.5. It's equal to the percentage of time that they held it during that server reset. Not 100% on the information, but it's directionally correct. The other one last thing before we move on I want to mention is for the ME262s for the final tier, there are only 2 available per rear airfield per restart. So that means there's a maximum of 4 available every 6 hours. There's some server commands that you should know. The first one is the P command. So if you put in the lesson sign in P to chat, it'll tell you the current supply of all of the airfields, all the friendly airfields on the map. The next one is TL. This one tells you how much time is left until the next restart. And the last one is S, and this one tells you the situation, basically what is the current state or health of all of the targets on the map. And all 3 of those are really important. You don't want to go for a 30-minute flight to go bomb a depot if there's only 15 minutes left on the server. You don't want to go fly 30 minutes to go bomb a depot if it's basically at 20% health. And you don't want to take off from an airfield when there's no supply. So that brings us to the next point, which are bugs or features of the server. The first one is what happens when you take off from an airfield that doesn't have any supply. And what happens is, as soon as you take off, get your gears up and start getting up to speed, you get kicked off the server. So that's annoying. It's just something that happens on the server. I've learned to live with it. You get used to checking supply. If you spawn in an airfield that doesn't have supply, you get a warning in chat, but there's always things going on in chat, so it's easy to miss. The next thing that's really annoying is a invisible plane bug. And if you spawn in at an airfield and you do not see friendly aircraft, you may have the bug. And the only way to fix the bug is to reconnect to the server. So you should be aware of this. If that wasn't clear, if you have the invisible plane bug, you won't be able to see enemies either, but they will be able to see you. So be wary of this. I would say this happens about 5% of the time. It's annoying, it happens, but the fun on the server is worth it. So let's talk about the server culture and the staff. The staff seem like they really care. They pretty much respond to any sort of feedback on Discord, and they seem like they've really taken a lot of ideas. On top of that, none of them are assholes. They just seem to leave people alone, and I've never really seen them be mean to anyone, so it's actually a pretty good place to be on. There aren't any specific rules on the server besides 2 that I could think of. One of them is don't kamikaze into player tanks with bombers, and don't shoot pilots that have bailed out and have their chute deployed. The culture on the server itself is actually very good. There's a really good mix of people. There's some players that actually really care who win the campaign, and there's organized groups. They will get a bunch of flights of bombers and go push the map. There's other groups that really don't care about who wins the map, and they just want to fly fighters and shoot things down. I personally fall in the latter category, but I think a healthy mix of both are really important. If you have too many fighter jocks in a server, then it's just everyone flying high-end aircraft at super high alts, and that gets boring quick. And if you have a bunch of bomber pilots, then it's basically just everyone ignoring each other, bombing AI. So I think the server actually has a pretty good mix. That brings me to stats. The server does have a stat system. It's similar to all the other IL-2 servers. The stat system on this server resets every 3 months. So any sort of contribution to the map effort is recorded. I personally think the stat system is actually one of the best features on the entire server, because on top of the overall campaign progression, you get a sense of your own progression and fulfillment by looking at the stat system. So that pretty much brings me to the end of this video. I hope you get a sense of what the server is like, and that you feel comfortable to branch out to multiplayer if you haven't already. I'm actually pretty surprised how many people only play single player. I really think that the fun to be had is in multiplayer, so I encourage you to try it out. I've tried a bunch of the other IL-2 servers, and I think Finnish really strikes the best balance between everything, and I'm happy to really only play on it. The only thing that I didn't mention in this video about the server mechanics, or the mission mechanics I should say, is the early warning system. And this is a system that is tied to the depots, and it gives players an alarm of when bombers are coming. I made a whole other video that specifically talked about that, so I'll link that above. And I would like to remind everyone to please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it, as it really helps the channel. If the channel doesn't get subscribers, it really stagnates, and it gets buried in search results. So I would really appreciate it, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you think this was a good video, let me know. If you think it sucked, leave a comment just so I know. I really just kind of make my videos based on what the comments and what people are thinking. So thank you so much.